So today, we let our essence shine. That's the idea. We have been going through all of these beautiful qualities week after week and looking at what it means to let those shine, to actually let those fill us up and overflow into our lives, into the people that we interact with. Today, we're taking all of it and letting it shine, but specifically as joy. And I think that the person who told this little story was experiencing a certain amount of joy. Any of you ever have a high school teacher who, for some reason or other, maybe they're a relatively new teacher or something, they mean to present something one way, but it all goes wrong? I had a teacher, a biology teacher, when I was in about 8th grade, who was a relatively new teacher, and he was a little nervous, and he was showing us how volcanoes erupt. And so he had made this thing, and he had all the little chemical stuff inside that was supposed to make it erupt. And so whatever he did to trigger that, instead of the thing erupting so we could see how it worked, it just shed liquid all over the desk, which meant that the algebra teacher who had been in there before him, all of her stuff, everything she'd collected, all her homework and everything, was completely ruined. He was mortified, but we thought it was pretty fun. So I think maybe this person, as a kid, thought that too. And she says, one teacher I had for biology had a memory trick to remember the taxonomy order: domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. That's a long thing to remember. So her way to remember it, we found out, was, Dear King Philip came over for great spaghetti. Okay? Domain, kingdom, phylum. Yeah, Dear King Philip came over for great spaghetti. But she was a bit flustered the day she was teaching us this, and instead she said, Dear King Philip came over for great sex. Now you can imagine how a class of 14-year-olds would respond to that. And so I would imagine it took that teacher a little while to regroup. But for the kids, that was a moment of joy. You know, when you see that your teacher can even goof up and get embarrassed, it somehow makes the world seem easier for us. And so I think it's very important that we experience joy and humor in our lives, even when the joke's on us. Last night, when I was finishing printing up stuff for this morning, one of the things that I print is a copy of the slide running order for me and one for Ceci at the table over there. And so I had 2 sheets for each of us, and I was going to staple them together, and I lost my grip on one set of them, and the second page went up in the air and slid under the bookcase, which has, you know, like this much clearance and weighs 1,000,000 tons. And it was like, oh, I couldn't do that if I tried. How do? And I tried to stick something under there for a minute, and then I just laughed, and I went, okay, well, it may be midnight, but I have to print page 2 again. So, you know, I could have gotten really upset, and there would have been a time in my life when I would have. I would have been just beside myself. But fortunately, last night, I was able to just go, really? Now? Okay. So we printed again. So when we let love, joy, humor, light, and play kind of be the way that we enter into life, then we have a little bit more resilience when we're feeling like, maybe that wasn't exactly how we wanted that to go. George Leonard, one of my favorite authors, George Leonard is the man who coined the phrase consciousness, something about human potential, the human potential movement. He coined that phrase, and he wrote a book called Mastery that I absolutely love, and he wrote a book called The Life That We Are Given that I love, and this comes from The Silent Pulse. He says, we might say the universe is so constituted as to maximize play. The best games are not those in which all goes smoothly and steadily toward a certain conclusion, but those in which the outcome is doubtful. Similarly, the geometry of life is designed to keep us at the point of maximum tension between certainty and uncertainty, order and chaos. Every important call is a close one. We survive and evolve by the skin of our teeth. We really wouldn't want it any other way. Now, I know there are people who would argue with that last sentence there, But for me, what it says is that when we play full out in life, we have more joy, more energy, more enthusiasm, and we produce, therefore, more of that to enjoy and celebrate. And so we might ask, well, if we're going to let our essence shine, what is it? What is our essence actually? And to me, our essence is love. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, said this interesting thing. Oh, I didn't put it on that page, okay. He said this interesting thing about reading Sri Aurobindo and discovering his definition or his expression of why creation exists. And so in Anatomy of Healing Prayer, Ernest Holmes says, I always like Sri Aurobindo's thought. I have never anywhere heard a more beautiful expression of the mystical meaning of creation. He said, it exists for the delight of God. And I think we're not just here to entertain, we're here to be in the delight, to live in the delight. And you know, delight is available to us all the time. It isn't about circumstances or conditions as much as we might have learned to associate it with those things. Because we all grow up hearing adults say, well, I'll be happy when, which is always some future thing. Or I'll be happy if. So we have, our happiness is conditional. It's based on something else happening. Are you with me here? Yeah. And we're waiting for that something else. We're holding our happiness in abeyance until that whatever it is happens, which might or might not happen. But we don't need to wait. We don't have to, contingency is not required for happiness. We could choose to be happy anyway. Terry Cole Whitaker used to say that her mother would try to insult her, but Terry didn't get offended or defensive or anything like that, and it frustrated her mother because she wanted to insult her sometimes, I guess. But Terry wasn't going to go there. And when I first learned about that, it seemed to me so amazing to imagine that there was a choice about that. That I actually had a choice of how I responded to what somebody said to me or about me or did that did not have to be whatever my habit was. See, I had this in my mind, which you may have or have had too, that certain kinds of behaviors on the part of other people just naturally evoke certain kinds of responses from us. But actually what I learned is that's not true. It's just habit or patterning. That what's really true is that it's always a choice, even if it's automatic, because we've done it so much. And if the choice we make is making us miserable, then why not be unable to be offended? Why not be unable to be insulted? That would be really different, don't you think? It's like Byron Katie saying, what would I be like, or what would my life be like if I were not even capable of that thought that's causing me pain, that judgment, that upset over whatever was said to me? What would I be like if I were not even capable of thinking that thought? And every time I actually honestly ask myself that question, I come back to, I'd be peaceful. I'd be happy. I'd be fine. I wouldn't be worried. I wouldn't feel bad. I wouldn't think they didn't like me, whatever it is, you know? And so if we are this shining, joyful collection of little love lights, which is, I think, what we are, then how do we let that light shine? Well, one of the ways that we do it is by sharing the joy of loving with other people. You know, work can be love in action. This is people putting up a house for Habitat for Humanity, which is something I've always admired and thought I would like to go do. You know, maybe we ought to do a project with Habitat for Humanity where we all put on hard hats and get hammers and go out there. Wouldn't that be fun? My son is a foreman for a eco-friendly construction company, and I'm sure the very thought that I was going to go out there and be near power tools would make him nervous. But I think that I just love watching that happen. I love it for several reasons. I love it because it gives people a home. I love it because it empowers them to be involved in the creation of this thing. It isn't just, you need a home, here you go. It's sweat equity. And that the community comes together to create that home for them, to assist them. That's letting our essence shine. It's not about telling people something about what we believe. It's not about all of our spiritual practices, although that's part of it. But it is about how we live our lives day to day. That's where the shining really shows up. And so the question becomes, how can that make a difference? Because we might say, well, I'm just one person. I can shine all I want to, but that's not going to fix this world the way it is. Maybe not. And maybe that's okay. Maybe our job isn't to fix the world. Maybe our job is to learn how to shine. And as we do that, others light up around us. So I want to share with you this morning a song from Jason Mraz that's called Love Is Still the Answer. And I'll let him explain it to you. Jim, can we turn all the lights down for this? It'll be easier to see, and that makes it easier to hear. So, here we go. Yeah. I saw that and I thought, it sounds corny to say after the song, but that is the answer. That's the answer. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here to be as individuals and as a congregation. This comes from the Unitarian Universalists, but I snuck it in here this morning because this is us. This is who we want to be as an organization, as a community, as individuals. I think that we want to live with open hearts and open minds and open hands and open doors to let that essence shine, but not just in this room, but to spread it out and share it where we are, and to bring other lights into this room, to bring other lights into this community and to welcome them. Does that make sense? That's what I'm for. And so when we look at our overall organization and it talks about a world that works for everyone, that really sets my hair on fire. I love that idea. Krishnamurti said, the moment you have in your heart this extraordinary thing called love and feel the depth, the delight, the ecstasy of it, you will discover that for you, the world is transformed. And Nora Roberts, an author, said, love and magic have a great deal in common. They enrich the soul, delight the heart, and they both take practice. And so I want to complete this morning by reading a version of the Lord's Prayer to you, which is translated directly from Aramaic instead of, from Aramaic to Greek to Latin to English, King James English at that. So this is, Aramaic is a language in which the words and the phrases have many colors of meanings. It's not as direct and absolute as English. So this is only one way it might be interpreted from the Aramaic. But this is one I particularly like. O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration, soften the ground of our being and carve out a space within us where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the fruit of your mission. Let each of our actions bear fruit in accordance with our desire. Endow us with the wisdom to produce and share what each being needs to grow and flourish. untie the tangled threads of destiny that bind us as we release others from their entanglement from past mistakes. Do not let us be seduced by that which would divert us from our true purpose, but illuminate the opportunities of the present moment, for you are the ground and the fruitful vision, the birth power and fulfillment, as all is gathered and made whole once again. And I cannot think of a better way to say, let it shine. Namaste.